My ex-husband told everyone I was the problem. But the group chat proved it. The notification chimed at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, just as I was settling into bed with my third cup of chamomile tea and another episode of the Great British Baking Show, my standard routine for numbing the loneliness that had become my constant companion for the past 2 years. Jake Martinez added you to Mark's 35th birthday bash party popper. My stomach dropped. Jake Martinez, Mark's college buddy, the same Jake who'd looked right through me at Target 6 months ago like I was invisible. The same Jake who'd been at our wedding, who'd crashed on our couch dozens of times, who'd once called me his favorite couple alongside Mark. I stared at my phone screen, thumb hovering over the leave group button. This had to be a mistake. Nobody from Mark's circle had spoken to me since our divorce was finalized. According to them, I was the crazy ex-wife. The controlling one. The reason their golden boy Mark had been so miserable for years. But curiosity won over self-preservation, and instead of leaving, I scrolled up. And up. And up. 3 months of messages. My hand started shaking around my tea mug as I read backwards through conversations that made my blood turn to ice water. Mark Thompson, August 15th, 2:34 p.m. Asterisk dude, the new girl doesn't even question when I'm out late. Sarah used to track my location like a fucking detective LMAO asterisk. Connor Walsh, August 15th, 2:35 p.m. Bro, you were literally cheating on her with 3 different girls faced with tears of joy. She wasn't crazy, she was right. Mark Thompson, August 15th, 2:36 p.m. Asterisk best part is everyone believes she was the psycho. I'm literally dating her former coworker now and Sarah has no idea skull asterisk. I had to set my tea down because my hands were trembling so violently I was about to spill it everywhere. 3 different girls. 3. And Jessica, sweet Jessica from the 4th grade teaching team who'd suddenly gotten cold and distant my last month at Westfield Elementary before I transferred schools. Jessica, who'd given me sympathetic looks and asked if I was doing okay while apparently already sleeping with my husband. I kept reading, my heart hammering against my ribcage. David Kim, July 22nd, 12 p.m. Still can't believe Sarah gained all that weight and thought you'd stick around clownface. Mark Thompson, July 22nd, 15 p.m. Asterisk right? Like 40 pounds and then had the audacity to get mad when I wasn't attracted to her anymore. At least now everyone knows what she's really like asterisk. 40 pounds. I'd gained 40 pounds during our marriage because I'd been stress-eating my way through his gaslighting, his lies, his constant criticism disguised as concern for my health. I'd gained weight because I'd been medicating anxiety and depression while he systematically destroyed my confidence and isolated me from everyone I cared about. Connor Walsh, July 3rd, 8:23 p.m. Asterisk you'll remember when you convinced her that her sister hated her? Face with tears of joy master manipulation asterisk. Mark Thompson, July 3rd, 8:24 p.m. Asterisk easiest thing ever. Just kept mentioning how Emily seemed annoyed when Sarah talked. Now they barely speak and Sarah thinks it's because Emily sided with me in the divorce smiling face with horns asterisk. I actually gasped out loud. Emily. My sister Emily, who I'd been avoiding for 2 years because I genuinely believed she thought I was a failure. Because Mark had planted that seed so carefully, so methodically, that I'd watered it myself until it bloomed into complete estrangement. My phone was buzzing with new messages in real time, but I couldn't focus on them anymore. I forced myself to keep scrolling, even though every message felt like a physical blow. The conversations got worse the further back I went, revealing a level of calculated cruelty that made my chest tight with rage. Mark Thompson, June 18th, 11:43 p.m. Asterisk update, Sarah's completely isolated now. Hasn't hung out with anyone but me in like 6 months. Phase 1 complete direct hit asterisk. Jake Martinez, June 18th, 11:45 p.m. Dude, that's kind of dark even for you. Mark Thompson, June 18th, 11:47 p.m. Asterisk it's strategic. Can't have her running to friends when she finds out about Melissa from the gym. This way when we divorce, I control the narrative asterisk. Connor Walsh, June 18th, 11:52 p.m. Asterisk you've been planning the divorce for 6 months? Well, she thinks you're in couples therapy? Asterisk. Mark Thompson, June 18th, 11:53 p.m. Asterisk I've been planning this for over a year, bro. The therapist thinks I'm working on communication, face with tears of joy. Really, I'm just getting ammunition for how unreasonable Sarah is asterisk. I had to stand up and pace around my bedroom, my bare feet silent on the hardwood floors. Dr. Martinez, our marriage counselor who I'd trusted, who I'd opened my heart to about feeling disconnected and paranoid. I told her I felt like Mark was lying to me, and she gently suggested I work on trust exercises and letting go of control. The whole time, Mark had been sitting beside me on that beige couch, nodding earnestly while secretly collecting everything I said to use against me later. David Kim, May 30th, 7:22 p.m. Asterisk Sarah looked rough at Jake's barbecue. Like she'd been crying asterisk. Mark Thompson, May 30th, 7:25 p.m. Asterisk because I told her that morning that Jessica mentioned she seemed clingy at work. Wasn't even true but Sarah spiraled for hours skull asterisk. Connor Walsh, May 30th, 7:26 p.m. Asterisk wait you made that up? Asterisk. Mark Thompson, May 30th, 7:28 p.m. Asterisk I make up shit all the time. Told her you guys think she talks too much at parties. Told her Emily said she was embarrassing at mom's birthday. None of it's real but she believes everything asterisk. Jake Martinez, May 30th, 7:31 p.m. Mark, that's fucked up man. Mark Thompson, May 30th, 7:33 p.m. Asterisk it's working though. She doesn't trust her own judgment anymore. Asked me yesterday if she was being too sensitive about me coming home at 2 a.m. face with tears of joy asterisk. I remembered that conversation. I remembered standing in our kitchen in my pajamas, feeling crazy and paranoid, asking the man who was cheating on me if I was overreacting to his obvious lies. I remembered how reasonable he'd sounded, how patient, as he explained that his poker games sometimes ran late and I needed to work on my trust issues. The group chat was still active. New messages were coming in every few minutes, but now they were about party planning, venue options, whether to book the private room at Murphy's Tavern or have it at Connor's house, who was handling decorations. Mundane details for celebrating the birthday of a man who'd spent months, maybe years, systematically destroying my sanity and social connections. My phone showed 47 unread messages now. I'd been added to this group 3 hours ago and hadn't said a word, which meant Jake probably hadn't noticed his mistake yet. Mark definitely hadn't noticed, or he would have removed me immediately. I had screenshots of everything, months of proof that I wasn't the crazy, controlling, jealous wife everyone believed me to be. Evidence that Mark had cheated, lied, manipulated, and then convinced our entire social circle that I was the problem. For the first time in 2 years, I wasn't the one who was wrong. The question was, what was I going to do about it? I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mark's messages burned into my retinas like neon signs. By 3 a.m., I'd given up pretending and was sitting at my kitchen table with my laptop open, methodically taking screenshots of every single conversation in that group chat. The messages kept coming throughout the night. Apparently, Connor was a night owl too, and Jake was working some kind of late shift. They were deep in party planning mode, completely oblivious to the fact that Mark's ex-wife was documenting every word. Connor Walsh, 3:23 a.m. Asterisk, should we invite the Westfield crew? Some of them still ask about Sarah asterisk. Mark Thompson, 3:25 a.m. Asterisk, fuck no. Last thing I need is someone feeling sorry for her and stirring up drama. Besides, Jessica would be weird about it asterisk. Jake Martinez, 3:27 a.m. Asterisk, Jessica's still coming, right? Things serious with you too? Asterisk. Mark Thompson, 3:29 a.m. Asterisk, serious enough. She's moving in next month. Already gave her Sarah's old key face with tears of joy asterisk. I actually felt nauseous. Jessica was moving into our house, the house I painted and decorated and called home for 4 years. She was going to sleep in our bed, cook in the kitchen where I'd made Mark birthday cakes and anniversary dinners, probably even use my coffee maker that I'd forgotten to take in the divorce because I'd been too emotionally destroyed to think straight. Connor Walsh, 3:31 a.m. Asterisk, that was fast. Divorce only finalized what, 8 months ago? Asterisk. Mark Thompson, 3:34 a.m. Asterisk, been fucking her for way longer than that, lol. Sarah never suspected because Jessica acted all concerned and supportive. Oh Sarah, you seem stressed, maybe you should talk to someone, skull asterisk. My hands clenched into fists. Jessica had said that to me. Multiple times. I thought she was being a caring colleague when she suggested I might need therapy for my marriage anxiety. Instead, she'd been gaslighting me while sleeping with my husband, probably laughing about it afterwards. Jake Martinez, 3:36 a.m. Asterisk, dude, how did Sarah not figure it out? You weren't exactly subtle asterisk. Mark Thompson, 3:39 a.m. Asterisk, are you kidding? I had her convinced she was losing her mind. Every time she got suspicious about something real, I'd make her feel guilty about 3 fake things. Classic misdirection asterisk. Connor Walsh, 3:41 a.m. Give me an example. Mark Thompson, 3:44 a.m. Asterisk, like when she found Jessica's earring in my car. Instead of explaining it, I got mad at her for going through my stuff and brought up how she'd been rude to my mom the week before, she wasn't, and weird about me hanging with you guys, she wasn't. By the end, she was apologizing to me and never mentioned the earring again asterisk. I remembered that fight. I remembered finding a small silver hoop earring, one I'd never seen before, under the passenger seat of Mark's Honda. I remembered how quickly the conversation had shifted to my trust issues and my disrespectful behavior toward his mother. I'd spend hours that night wondering if I really had been rude to Margaret at the family barbecue, replaying every interaction, wondering what was wrong with me. The earring got thrown away and never mentioned again. Because I'd been convinced that I was the problem. David Kim, 6:42 a.m. Asterisk, morning fuckers. Caught up on the thread. Mark, you're a sociopath face with tears of joy asterisk. Mark Thompson, 6:45 a.m. Asterisk, sociopath who's getting laid by his ex-wife's co-worker in his ex-wife's house. I'd call that winning trophy asterisk. Connor Walsh, 6:47 a.m. Asterisk, what if Sarah finds out about Jessica? Like really finds out? Asterisk. Mark Thompson, 6:51 a.m. Asterisk, from who? She has like 0 friends left and Jessica sure as hell isn't telling. Plus, who's gonna believe crazy Sarah over sweet kindergarten teacher Jessica? I've got everyone convinced Sarah was the toxic 1-inch asterisk. Jake Martinez, 6:53 a.m. Asterisk, still feels wrong, man. She seemed really broken at the divorce hearing asterisk. Mark Thompson, 6:56 a.m. Asterisk, good. Broken means she won't cause problems for me and Jess. Broken means she'll stay in whatever sad little apartment she's hiding in and leave us alone asterisk. I looked around my sad little apartment, the 1-bedroom place I'd found after the divorce, with its thin walls and broken garbage disposal and view of the dumpster. Mark was right about one thing, I had been hiding here. I'd been so ashamed, so convinced that everyone saw me the way Mark had painted me, that I'd basically disappeared from life entirely. But reading these messages, seeing the truth laid out in black and white, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Clarity. Pure, crystal clear certainty that I hadn't been crazy after all. And with that clarity came something else, something that made my pulse quicken and my jaw clench with determination. I was going to make Mark regret every single lie he'd ever told about me. The group chat kept buzzing throughout Wednesday morning as I sat in my classroom during my planning period, half-heartedly grading spelling tests while my phone lit up with increasingly damaging revelations. My students were at lunch, giving me 30 minutes to dive deeper into Mark's digital confessions. Mark Thompson, 11:23 a.m. Asterisk, by the way, Connor, thanks for backing me up with Sarah's parents at the grocery store last month. Selling them Mark tried so hard but Sarah pushed everyone away, narrative was chef's kiss asterisk. Connor Walsh, 11:25 a.m. Asterisk, your acting deserved an Oscar, bro. Almost convinced myself you were the victim face with tears of joy asterisk. Mark Thompson, 11:28 a.m. Asterisk, Sarah's mom literally hugged me and said she was sorry I had to deal with her daughter's issues for so long. If she only knew her precious Sarah was crying herself to sleep because she thought her own family hated her asterisk. My red pen snapped in half. Mom had hugged him. My own mother, who'd raised me to be strong and independent, had comforted my manipulative ex-husband while I spent months thinking my family was disappointed in me. I'd stopped calling home as much because I was convinced they were tired of my drama. David Kim, 11:31 a.m. Asterisk, speaking of Sarah's family, didn't her dad offer you that job reference even after the divorce? Asterisk. Mark Thompson, 11:34 a.m. Asterisk LMAO, yes. Bob offered to put in a good word for me at his firm. Said any man who tried that hard to make it work deserved help getting back on his feet. I didn't even need it, but the irony was too good to pass up. Asterisk. My chest tightened. Dad had gotten Mark an interview at Peterson and Associates. My father, who'd worked there for 23 years, had used his reputation to help the man who'd systematically destroyed his daughter's mental health. Mark had probably sat in that interview, playing the wounded ex-husband, while Dad vouched for his character. The messages kept rolling in, and each one revealed another layer of Mark's deception. Jake Martinez, 11:42 a.m. Asterisk question, what happened to Sarah's cat? She loved that thing. Asterisk. Mark Thompson, 11:45 a.m. Asterisk, muffin? Told Sarah she was allergic and needed to rehome him for her health. Completely made that up. Really, I just hated cleaning the litter box and Jessica's allergic to cats. Asterisk. Connor Walsh, 11:46 a.m. Asterisk, wait, you made her get rid of her cat based on a fake allergy? Asterisk. Mark Thompson, 11:49 a.m. Asterisk, got her to take allergy tests and everything. When they came back negative, I convinced her the tests weren't accurate and she was just in denial. Muffin was gone within a week. Asterisk. I had to put my head down on my desk. Muffin. My sweet orange tabby who'd slept curled against my legs every night, who'd been my emotional support through college and my first years of teaching. I'd sobbed for hours when I dropped him off at the animal shelter, convinced I was choosing my health over his well-being. The allergy symptoms Mark had pointed out, the sneezing, the itchy eyes, had completely disappeared after Muffin was gone. I thought it proved Mark was right. Really, it proved that stress and misery can manifest physically, and both had vanished because I wasn't fighting Mark anymore. David Kim, 12:03 p.m. Bro, you're painting yourself as a complete psychopath in this chat. Mark Thompson, 12:06 p.m. Asterisk, only to you guys. Everyone else thinks I'm the long-suffering husband who finally escaped his crazy wife. Even Sarah thinks that man. Shrugging. Asterisk. Connor Walsh, 12:08 p.m. Asterisk, what if she didn't though? Like hypothetically, what would you do if Sarah found out about all this? Asterisk. Mark Thompson, 12:12 p.m. Asterisk, she won't. But even if she did, who's gonna believe her? I've spent 2 years making her look unstable. If she started telling people I was the manipulative one, everyone would just think it was typical bitter ex-wife shit. Asterisk. That last message hit me like a physical blow, but not in the way Mark intended. He wasn't wrong. If I tried to tell this story a week ago, people would have dismissed it as desperate lies from a discredited ex-wife. But now I had proof. Screenshots of Mark's own words, confessing to everything in explicit detail with timestamps and witnesses. I looked at my phone again, 127 unread messages now, and Jake still hadn't noticed his mistake. The party planning was getting more elaborate, and the group was discussing inviting people from our old friend circle, people who'd watched me become isolated and had believed Mark's version of events. My lunch break was almost over, and I had 7th grade English in 10 minutes. But as I gathered up the broken pieces of my red pen and straightened my desk, I felt something shifting inside me. For 2 years, I'd been living in the world Mark created, one where I was the villain of my own story. But stories could be rewritten. And I was about to become the author. The messages that came through during my afternoon classes made my hands shake so violently I had to excuse myself to the bathroom twice. By 3:15 p.m., when I was finally alone in my classroom again, the group chat had exploded with planning details that revealed just how extensive Mark's social manipulation had been. Mark Thompson, 2:47 p.m. Asterisk, guest list update, got confirmations from the whole Riverside crew. Even got Sarah's old book club friends to say yes. Asterisk. Jake Martinez, 2:48 p.m. Asterisk, wait, Lisa and Amanda are coming? They were like Sarah's best friends. Asterisk. Mark Thompson, 2:52 p.m. Asterisk, WER her best friends. Past tense. I may have mentioned to Lisa that Sarah was spreading rumors about her marriage, and told Amanda that Sarah was jealous of her promotion. Neither of them have spoken to Sarah since last Christmas. Direct hit. Asterisk. Connor Walsh, 2:54 p.m. Asterisk, dude, that's fucked up. Those girls loved Sarah. Asterisk. Mark Thompson, 2:56 p.m. Asterisk, and now they think she's a toxic gossip who can't handle other people's success. Meanwhile, they're coming to my birthday party. That's what I call a clean sweep. Asterisk. I stared at my phone screen in disbelief. Lisa and Amanda, my book club friends who'd suddenly grown cold and distant, who'd stopped inviting me to our monthly dinners, who'd made me feel like I was imagining our years of friendship. I'd spent months wondering what I'd done wrong, replaying every conversation, convinced I'd somehow revealed myself to be the terrible person Mark said I was. The truth was so much worse and so much simpler. Mark had systematically poisoned every meaningful relationship in my life with carefully crafted lies. David Kim, 3:02 p.m. Asterisk, how many people did you turn against her? This is starting to sound like a military operation. Asterisk. Mark Thompson, 3:08 p.m. Asterisk, military operation is right. Had to be strategic about it. Couldn't just trash talk her randomly, that would look suspicious. Had to make each person feel like they were discovering Sarah's true nature on their own. Asterisk. Mark Thompson, 3:09 p.m. Asterisk, like with her coworkers, I dropped little comments about how stressed Sarah seemed, how she was struggling with some personal issues. Then when she actually started acting stressed, because I was gaslighting her at home, it confirmed what I'd already planted. Asterisk. Jessica. Of course Jessica had been part of this from the beginning. I thought about all those concerned conversations in the teacher's lounge, Jessica's gentle suggestions that maybe I needed to take care of myself, the way other colleagues had started treating me like I was fragile. They hadn't been responding to my actual behavior, they'd been primed by Mark's campaign to see me as unstable. Jake Martinez, 3:15 p.m. Asterisk this is seriously dark, Mark. Like sociopath level manipulation asterisk. Mark Thompson, 3:18 p.m. Asterisk results speak for themselves. Clean divorce, kept the house, everyone thinks I'm the good guy, and I'm dating Sarah's replacement who everyone likes better anyway. Plus Sarah's so isolated she can't cause problems even if she wanted to asterisk. Connor Walsh, 3:21 p.m. Asterisk what about her family though? That seems harder to manipulate asterisk. Mark Thompson, 3:25 p.m. Asterisk actually easier. Families want to believe their kid's marriage can be saved. So I played the concerned husband trying everything to help his struggling wife. Told them about Sarah's mood swings and paranoid thoughts but always with this sad, worried tone like I was trying to protect her asterisk. Mark Thompson, 3:26 p.m. Asterisk by the time I filed for divorce, they were practically begging me to reconsider because Sarah needs stability right now. They felt worse for me than for their own daughter faced with tears of joy asterisk. My vision blurred with tears of rage. My parents' careful phone calls over the past 2 years, their gentle questions about whether I was taking care of my mental health, their obvious relief when I'd finally started seeing Dr. Peterson, it had all been influenced by Mark's performance as the devoted husband worried about his wife's deteriorating mental state. David Kim, 3:31 p.m. Asterisk okay but what's the endgame here? You got your divorce, you got the girl, you got everyone on your side. Why are you still talking about Sarah like this? Asterisk. Mark Thompson, 3:35 p.m. Asterisk because it's fucking hilarious? Also because I need to make sure the story stays consistent. Can't have people starting to feel sorry for her or asking too many questions about why she disappeared asterisk. Mark Thompson, 3:37 p.m. Asterisk plus Jessica gets paranoid sometimes about Sarah getting revenge or whatever. I keep telling her Sarah's too broken to fight back, but Jess wants to make sure everyone stays team Mark just in case asterisk. Jessica was scared of me getting revenge. The woman who'd stolen my husband while pretending to be my friend was worried about me fighting back. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so infuriating. But what struck me most was Mark's confidence that I was too broken to fight back. He'd been so thorough, so systematic in destroying my support network, that he genuinely believed I was powerless. I looked around my empty classroom, at the inspirational posters about perseverance and growth, at the shelf of books I used to teach my students about character development and plot resolution. For 2 years, I'd been living as the defeated character in Mark's story. But he'd made one crucial mistake, he'd left evidence. And he was about to learn that broken things can be rebuilt stronger than before. The revelation that made me actually gasp out loud came at 4:23 p.m., just as I was packing up my classroom for the day. Connor Walsh, 4:18 p.m. Asterisk, speaking of Jessica being paranoid, didn't she freak out last week about running into Sarah's sister? Asterisk. Mark Thompson, 4:21 p.m. Asterisk oh yeah, Emily came into the Starbucks where Jess was working and apparently just stared at her. Jess was convinced Emily knew something asterisk. Jake Martinez, 4:22 p.m. Asterisk wait, Emily doesn't know about you and Jessica? Asterisk. Mark Thompson, 4:23 p.m. Asterisk fuck no. Emily thinks I'm single and focusing on healing. Skull she actually apologized to me last month for Sarah being difficult during the divorce proceedings asterisk. Emily. My sister Emily, who I'd been avoiding because I thought she'd chosen Mark's side. Emily, who apparently had no idea that Mark was dating Jessica, which meant she'd been kept in the dark just as much as I had. David Kim, 4:26 p.m. Asterisk, didn't Emily try to reach out to Sarah a bunch of times after the divorce? Asterisk. Mark Thompson, 4:29 p.m. Asterisk yeah she kept calling and texting Sarah. So I told Emily that Sarah was really angry at the whole family and needed space. Then I told Sarah that Emily was disappointed in how she handled the marriage. Classic divide and conquer asterisk. Connor Walsh, 4:31 p.m. Asterisk, so Emily thinks Sarah is mad at her, and Sarah thinks Emily is disappointed in her? Asterisk. Mark Thompson, 4:33 p.m. Asterisk exactly. They've barely spoken in 2 years because each one thinks the other doesn't want contact. Meanwhile, Emily keeps asking me how Sarah's doing because she's worried but doesn't want to make things worse faced with tears of joy asterisk. I had to grip the edge of my desk. Emily had been worried about me this whole time. Those missed calls I'd ignored, the birthday card I'd thrown away unopened, the Christmas invitation I'd declined because I was convinced she was just being polite, Emily had actually wanted to talk to me. Jake Martinez, 4:38 p.m. Asterisk that's actually really sad, Mark. Emily seems like a good person asterisk. Mark Thompson, 4:41 p.m. Asterisk she is. Which is why it was so easy to manipulate her. Good people always assume other good people have good reasons for their behavior. Emily can't imagine that I'd lie about something that serious asterisk. Mark Thompson, 4:42 p.m. Asterisk plus Emily's got her own shit going on with the new baby and everything. She doesn't have energy to investigate family drama asterisk. The new baby. Emily had a baby. My sister had a baby and I didn't even know because I'd been too ashamed to maintain contact with my own family. I'd missed the pregnancy, the birth, everything. There was a whole new person in my family, my nephew or niece, and I was a stranger to them. Connor Walsh, 4:47 p.m. Asterisk, when did Emily have the baby? Asterisk. Mark Thompson, 4:49 p.m. Asterisk like 4 months ago? Little girl named Sophie. Emily was asking if I thought Sarah would want to meet her niece but was scared Sarah would just reject them again asterisk. David Kim, 4:51 p.m. Asterisk again? Asterisk. Mark Thompson, 4:54 p.m. Asterisk I may have told Emily that Sarah said she didn't want anything to do with people who supported Mark when Emily sent her a sympathy card after the divorce. Emily never sent a sympathy card asterisk. 4 months old. I had a 4-month-old niece named Sophie, and Emily thought I didn't want to meet her because Mark had fabricated a conversation that never happened. Emily was probably looking at this baby girl, wanting to share the joy with her sister, but believing that her sister had rejected them out of spite. Jake Martinez, 4:58 p.m. Asterisk Mark, that's fucked up even for you. You're keeping Sarah away from her own family asterisk. Mark Thompson, 5:02 p.m. Asterisk, I'm not keeping anyone away from anyone. I just tell people what they want to hear. Emily wants to believe Sarah's going through a hard time rather than accepting that Sarah might just be a bitch, so I give her that narrative asterisk. Mark Thompson, 5:03 p.m. And Sarah wants to believe everyone hates her because it's easier than taking responsibility for her own problems, so I give her that narrative too. Connor Walsh, 5:06 p.m. Asterisk, what happens when they figure it out though? Asterisk. Mark Thompson, 5:09 p.m. Asterisk, they won't. It's been 2 years and my story's only gotten stronger. Emily's busy with mom life, Sarah's hiding in her apartment, and I'm the only connection between them. As long as I control the narrative, they'll stay separated asterisk. Mark Thompson, 5:11 p.m. Asterisk, besides, even if they did talk, what are they gonna do? Everyone else already thinks Sarah's the problem. Emily would probably just feel bad that her sister fooled her too asterisk. The audacity was breathtaking. Mark wasn't just content with destroying my marriage, he was actively maintaining the destruction, continuously reinforcing the lies that kept me isolated from my family. This wasn't just past manipulation, it was ongoing psychological warfare. But as I stared at these messages, screenshotting every single word, I realized Mark had just made his biggest mistake yet. He'd revealed that Emily wanted a relationship with me. That my family didn't actually hate me. That there was a 4-month-old little girl who could be part of my life if I was brave enough to reach out. Mark thought he was untouchable because he controlled the narrative. But narratives can be rewritten when you have documentation. And Emily's phone number was still in my contacts. I stared at Emily's contact info for 20 minutes in my car, engine off, sitting in the school parking lot as the custodial staff filtered out around me. My finger hovered over her name while my heart hammered against my ribs. What if Mark was lying about this too? What if Emily really didn't want to hear from me? But then I remembered his exact words. Emily keeps asking me how Sarah's doing because she's worried Emily had been asking about me. For 2 years, she'd been asking. I pressed call before I could lose my nerve. It rang 3 times. Then, Sarah? Emily's voice was breathless, shocked. Oh my god, Sarah, is that really you? I started crying immediately. I'm so sorry, I thought, Mark said you were disappointed in me and I was so ashamed. Disappointed? Sarah, what are you talking about? I've been trying to reach you for months. I thought you hated us. Hated you? Emily, I could never. I wiped my nose with my sleeve, probably looking like a mess to anyone walking by. Wait, what do you mean you've been trying to reach me? I called you 15 times after Sophie was born. I sent pictures to your email. I even drove by your old house looking for you before Mark told me you'd moved and didn't want visitors. The parking lot was almost empty now, just me and the gym teacher loading equipment into his truck. Mark told you I didn't want visitors? He said you were going through a really hard time and that contact with the family was making it worse. That you'd asked him to tell us you needed space to heal. Emily's voice got smaller. Sarah, have you been alone this whole time? I closed my eyes. I have a niece named Sophie. You have a niece named Sophie who looks exactly like you did as a baby. She's got your eyes and your stubborn chin. Emily was crying now too. Sarah, I have so many pictures. I've been saving them all for when you were ready to talk to us again. 4 months old? 4 months and 3 weeks. She sleeps through the night now, and she smiles when you sing to her, and she grabs at everything with these tiny little fists. Emily paused. Sarah, what did Mark tell you about us? I took a shaky breath. That you thought I was difficult during the divorce. That you were tired of my drama. That mom and dad were embarrassed by how I'd handled everything. Jesus Christ. Emily's voice went hard. Sarah, mom cries about you. She keeps your picture on her nightstand and asks me every week if I think you'll call. Dad blames himself for not seeing how bad things were with Mark. They both think you don't want anything to do with us. He told them I didn't want contact? He told them you said we supported him over you and that you needed time to forgive us. We've been respecting what we thought were your wishes while dying inside. Emily's voice cracked. Sarah, we never supported Mark over you. We barely tolerated Mark for your sake. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. You barely tolerated him? Are you kidding? Dad called him that manipulative little weasel after every family dinner. Mom said he reminded her of her narcissist brother. We were all waiting for you to see it, but we didn't want to push because we were scared you'd choose him and we'd lose you completely. The irony was staggering. My family had disliked Mark the entire time but had stayed quiet to avoid pushing me away. Meanwhile, Mark had convinced me they preferred him and thought I was the problem. Emily, I said quietly, I need to show you something. Can you come over tonight? I have screenshots of messages that are going to make you very, very angry. I'm already angry, Sarah. I'm furious. At Mark, at this situation, at myself for not fighting harder to reach you. She paused. What kind of messages? Messages where Mark admits to lying to both of us. Where he brags about keeping us apart on purpose. My voice got steadier as the rage crystallized into determination. Messages where he confesses to things that are going to destroy every lie he's built his new life on. His new life? He's living with Jessica Morrison from my old school. Has been for months. They were having an affair during our marriage. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Then Emily's voice came back, deadly quiet. Jessica Morrison. Sweet little kindergarten teacher Jessica Morrison who asked me how you were doing at the grocery store last week. She asked about me? Played the concerned friend routine. Said she was worried because you'd seemed so isolated before you transferred schools. Emily's laugh had no humor in it. That manipulative bitch was pumping me for information while fucking your husband. Ex-husband, I corrected automatically. Whatever. Sarah, I'm coming over right now. Text me your address. And Sarah? Yeah? We're going to make them both very, very sorry. Emily arrived at my apartment 47 minutes later with a box of tissues, a bottle of wine, and the kind of grim determination I hadn't seen since we were kids plotting revenge against neighborhood bullies. She also brought pictures of Sophie. Before we dive into whatever fresh hell Mark has created, she said, settling onto my couch, you need to meet your niece properly. The photos made me cry all over again. Sophie really did look like me as a baby, the same dark eyes, the same serious expression, even the same way of clutching her tiny fists near her face. In one picture, she was wearing a onesie that said, my aunt is cooler than your aunt, and my heart actually ached looking at it. I bought that the day after she was born, Emily said softly. I was so excited for you to meet her. I kept imagining you holding her, teaching her about books like you taught me. I wiped my eyes and pulled out my phone. Before I show you these messages, I need you to know that they're bad. Really bad. Mark doesn't just admit to lying, he brags about it. He thinks it's funny that he destroyed my relationships. Show me. I handed her my phone, open to the beginning of the screenshots. Emily's face went through a progression of emotions as she scrolled, confusion, disgust, horror, and finally a cold fury that reminded me exactly why childhood bullies had learned not to mess with the Morrison sisters. This motherfucker, she whispered, reading Mark's confession about manipulating our family. This absolute piece of shit convinced mom and dad that you called them enablers who never really supported your independence. I never said that. I know you never said that. But they believed it because Mark delivered it with this heartbroken expression, like he was reluctantly sharing something painful. Emily kept scrolling, her jaw getting tighter with each message. Oh, this is rich. Look at this one. She pointed to a message from September where Mark told the group about running into my dad at Home Depot. Mark Thompson, September 12, 3:22 p.m. Asterisk saw Bob at Home Depot buying supplies for what he called Sarah's old room. Apparently they're turning it into a craft room because Sarah has made it clear she won't be visiting. Bob looked so defeated I almost felt bad. Asterisk. Connor Walsh, September 12, 3:25 p.m. That's actually sad. Mark Thompson, September 12, 3:27 p.m. Asterisk what's sad is how easily Sarah threw away people who loved her. Bob spent 4 hours helping me move boxes when she kicked me out, and she repaid him by cutting off contact. Asterisk. Emily looked up at me with blazing eyes. Dad helped him move? Apparently. Dad helped the man who was systematically abusing his daughter move out of the house Dad helped you buy, because Mark convinced him you were the one being unreasonable. She turned back to the phone. And they're turning your room into a craft room because they think you never want to come home. The cruelty was almost artistic in its precision. Mark hadn't just lied, he'd crafted a narrative so believable that my own parents had started renovating my childhood bedroom, convinced their daughter had abandoned them. Keep reading, I said. It gets worse. Emily found the messages about Sophie, about Mark telling me my family was disappointed while telling them I wanted no contact. She read them twice, her knuckles white where she gripped my phone. Sarah, she said very quietly, I asked Mark 3 weeks ago if he thought you'd want to be Sophie's godmother. My stomach dropped. What did he say? He got this sad look and said you'd probably see it as another burden you didn't want. That you were trying to build a life without reminders of the past. Emily's voice was shaking with rage. I actually apologized to him for bringing it up. I felt guilty for even asking. Emily. I wanted you to be her godmother so badly, Sarah. I kept imagining you teaching her to read, taking her to museums, being the cool aunt who shows up with books and adventures. She wiped her eyes angrily. Instead, I asked Jessica Morrison at the grocery store last week if she thought it would be appropriate to reach out to you. I asked your husband's mistress for advice about contacting my own sister. The group chat was still active. Even as we sat there processing the extent of Mark's manipulation, new messages were coming in about party logistics. The guest list had grown to 43 people, almost everyone from our former social circle, plus colleagues, family friends, and people I'd once considered close friends. Look at this, Emily said, pointing to a new message thread. David Kim, 7:43 p.m. Asterisk final headcount at 43. That's like everyone who used to hang out with Mark and Sarah. Asterisk. Mark Thompson, 7:45 p.m. Except Sarah face with tears of joy perfect party roster TBH. Jake Martinez, 7:47 p.m. Asterisk feels weird celebrating without her though. Like we're dancing on her grave. Asterisk. Mark Thompson, 7:51 p.m. Asterisk Sarah buried herself when she chose to be bitter instead of working on her problems. I tried to help her for years. Everyone coming to this party knows I did everything I could. Asterisk. Emily looked at me with something like awe. He really believes his own bullshit, doesn't he? Completely. He's rewritten history so thoroughly that he's convinced himself he's the victim. Well, Emily said, standing up and pacing around my small living room like a caged tiger, he's about to learn the difference between controlling a narrative and controlling the truth. She turned to face me, and I recognized the expression from when we were 12 and planning elaborate revenge against the kids who bullied me at summer camp. Sarah, how do you feel about crashing a birthday party? The party was scheduled for Saturday night at Murphy's Tavern, the same restaurant where Mark and I had celebrated our second anniversary. Emily and I spent Thursday evening crafting our plan with the precision of military strategists, spreading screenshots across my coffee table like battle maps. We can't just show up and start showing people your phone, Emily said, highlighting guest names on a printed list we'd compiled from the group chat. We need maximum impact with minimal escape routes for Mark. What do you mean? I mean Mark's going to try to spin this the second he realizes what's happening. He'll claim the screenshots are fake, or taken out of context, or that you're having some kind of breakdown. Emily circled Jessica's name in red ink. We need to control the reveal so he can't manipulate his way out of it. By Friday morning, our strategy was bulletproof. Emily would arrive at the party first, she'd been invited months ago through some mutual college friends. I would show up an hour later, after people were settled and relaxed. Emily would have already planted seeds with key people, showing them selected screenshots and building curiosity. The beauty is that Mark can't kick you out without looking suspicious, Emily explained over coffee in my kitchen. It's a public restaurant, you're friends with half the people there, and if he tries to make a scene, it'll just prove everything you're saying about his true character. What we hadn't anticipated was Jake Martinez developing a conscience. My phone buzzed at 11:23 a.m. Friday with a notification that made my blood freeze. Jake Martinez has removed you from Mark's 35th birthday bash party popper. Shit, I whispered, staring at the screen. Emily looked up from feeding Sophie her bottle. She'd brought the baby over for what she called emergency and bonding time before we burn Mark's life down. What's wrong? Jake removed me from the group chat. Emily's face went pale. Does that mean he told Mark? I was already opening the screenshots I'd saved, frantically scrolling to see if I'd captured everything important. My hands were shaking as I realized what this meant. If Jake had warned Mark, then Mark knew I had evidence. He'd have time to prepare, time to craft counter-narratives, time to poison the well before I ever got a chance to speak. My phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized the area code. It was local. Hello? Sarah? This is Jake Martinez. Please don't hang up. Emily leaned closer, and I put the phone on speaker. Sophie made a little gurgling sound in the background. I removed you from the group chat, Jake continued, his voice tight with what sounded like panic. But I hadn't told Mark yet. I've been staring at my phone for 2 hours trying to figure out what the hell to do. Jake. No, let me talk. I need to get this out. He took a shaky breath. I've been reading through those messages since Wednesday night, and I feel sick. Actually sick. Some of the stuff Mark said, the way he talked about destroying your relationships, the way he laughed about it, Sarah, I had no idea. Emily and I exchanged glances. This wasn't what we'd expected. I added you to that chat by accident, but now I'm wondering if it wasn't some kind of cosmic justice or something. Jake's voice cracked. Sarah, I backed him up. When people asked about the divorce, I told them Mark tried everything. I vouched for him to your parents, to your friends. I helped him destroy your reputation because I believed his lies. Jake, There's something else, he interrupted. Something that's not in the group chat because Mark was smart enough not to put it in writing. But Sarah, I think you need to know. My stomach clenched. What? The night you moved out of the house, Mark threw a party. Not a big one, just Connor and David and a few others. But he was celebrating. Actually celebrating that you were gone. Jake's voice dropped to almost a whisper. And Jessica was there. She spent the night. In your bed, Sarah. The same night you moved into that apartment, Mark was fucking Jessica in the bed you'd shared for 4 years. Emily's face went murderous. Sophie, somehow sensing the tension, started to fuss. That's not even the worst part, Jake continued. Mark took pictures of Jessica in your bedroom, wearing what he said was your old robe. He was texting them to some group chat I wasn't in, laughing about how much better Jessica looked in your house than you ever did. The room started spinning. I gripped the edge of the coffee table to steady myself. Jake, Emily said, her voice deadly calm, are you going to warn Mark that Sarah knows? The silence stretched for long seconds. Then, no. I'm going to help you destroy him. The plan Jake proposed was more devastating than anything Emily and I had conceived. I've been thinking about this all night, Jake said over the phone, his voice gaining strength. Mark trusts me completely. I'm his oldest friend, his best man, the guy who's never questioned him. If I play this right, I can get him to confess to things that aren't even in the group chat. What do you mean? I asked, still reeling from his revelation about the photos. I mean I can get him to brag about stuff he's kept private. Mark loves an audience when he thinks he's safe. If I act impressed by his manipulation tactics, he'll spill everything. Jake paused. Sarah, I think there are other women. Not just the 3 he mentioned in the chat. Emily shifted Sophie to her shoulder, patting the baby's back with perhaps more force than necessary. Other women during their marriage? During and after. Mark's got this whole system. He finds women who work in education or social services, targets the ones who seem nurturing and trusting. Jessica wasn't random, Sarah. She was selected specifically because she worked with you and could provide inside information. My coffee mug slipped from my hands, shattering on the kitchen floor. The crash made Sophie start crying, and Emily immediately began soothing her while shooting me concerned looks. Jake, I said slowly, kneeling to pick up ceramic shards, are you saying Mark planned the affair with Jessica from the beginning? I'm saying Mark started volunteering at the school fundraiser 3 years ago specifically to meet your coworkers. He told Connor and me he was researching Sarah's work environment to better understand why you were stressed all the time. Jake's voice got harder. But really he was looking for leverage. Someone close to you who could monitor your behavior and report back to him. Emily stopped patting Sophie and stared at me. The fundraiser where you said Mark was being unusually supportive? I nodded numbly. I'd been so touched that Mark had volunteered to help with the silent auction, had praised him to Jessica and the other teachers for being such a devoted husband. Meanwhile, he'd been systematically identifying which of my colleagues would be most susceptible to manipulation. There's more, Jake continued. Mark keeps a notebook. Like an actual physical notebook where he writes down personal information about people, their insecurities, their relationship problems, their fears. He calls it his leverage library. You've seen this notebook? He showed it to me last year when he was drunk. Thought it was hilarious. Sarah, he has pages about you, but also about Jessica, your parents, your sister, anyone in your orbit that he might need to influence. Jake's breathing sounded ragged. He had notes about Emily's struggle with infertility before Sophie. Plans for how to use that information if needed. Emily went completely still. What did you just say? Mark knew about your miscarriages, Emily. He wrote down details about how they affected your relationship with your husband, how they made you more protective of family relationships. He was prepared to weaponize your grief if Sarah had tried to reconcile with you sooner. Sophie's crying intensified, but Emily seemed frozen, her face pale with shock and fury. I took the baby from her arms and began the bouncing motion I'd seen Emily do earlier. Jake, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest, I need you to get that notebook. That's exactly what I was thinking. Tomorrow night, during the party, his guard will be down. He'll be drunk and celebrating, surrounded by all the people he's manipulated. I can get into his house. I still have the spare key from when I used to check on things during your marriage. Emily found her voice again. And then what? We have the notebook, we have the screenshots, we have Jake's testimony. How do we make sure everyone knows? Simple, Jake said. We don't crash the party. We let the party come to us. Jake's plan was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of confronting Mark at the party, we would bring the evidence to the party guests in a way that Mark couldn't control or escape from. Murphy's Tavern has that big projector screen in the private dining room, Jake explained. They use it for slideshow presentations during corporate events. Mark specifically requested it for his birthday toast. He wants to show a highlight reel of photos from the past year. Emily raised an eyebrow. Photos that probably include Jessica. Definitely include Jessica. But here's the thing, I'm in charge of the technical setup. Mark asked me to handle it because I'm good with computers. Jake's voice carried a note of grim satisfaction. Which means I control what gets displayed on that screen. The audacity of it took my breath away. Mark was planning to publicly celebrate his new relationship at a party attended by people who still believed I was the villain in our story. He would show photos of himself and Jessica, probably in my old house, maybe even wearing my clothes, while surrounded by friends and family who thought he was a victim of my instability. So we hijack his slideshow, I said slowly. We replace his slideshow. Instead of Mark's highlight reel, everyone gets to see screenshots of his group chat confessions. 43 people, including your parents and several of his colleagues, watching Mark's own words prove that everything they believed about your marriage was a lie. I looked at Emily, who was gently bouncing Sophie while her eyes gleamed with strategic thinking. Can we do that technically? Switch out his presentation? Jake can, Emily said. But we need backup plans. What if Mark tries to shut it down? What if people don't believe the screenshots are real? That's where the notebook comes in, Jake answered. I'll get it tomorrow afternoon while Mark's at the office and Jessica's at her parents' house. She goes there every Saturday for family dinner. The notebook will corroborate everything in the digital messages and add evidence of premeditated manipulation going back years. Sophie had fallen asleep in Emily's arms, her tiny face peaceful despite the storm we were planning around her. Looking at my niece, I felt a surge of protective fury that surprised me with its intensity. Mark hadn't just destroyed my past, he'd stolen months of my relationship with this perfect little person. There's something else we need to consider, I said carefully. Jessica's going to be at this party. She's going to see evidence that her boyfriend is a serial manipulator who targeted her specifically because of her connection to me. That's going to destroy her too. Jake was quiet for a moment. Sarah, Jessica helped him gaslight you for over a year. She pretended to be your friend while reporting your conversations back to Mark and sleeping with your husband. She chose to participate in this. I know. But she was also manipulated by someone who, according to you, keeps a literal notebook on how to psychologically control people. I shifted in my chair, trying to organize my thoughts. I'm not saying she's innocent. I'm saying she's also a victim, and when this comes out, she's going to realize that everything she thought she knew about her relationship was orchestrated. Emily looked up from Sophie. Are you having second thoughts about exposing them? No. God, no. I'm having strategic thoughts about managing the fallout. I pulled up the screenshots on my phone again, scrolling to some of Mark's more damning confessions. When Jessica sees these messages, especially the ones where Mark brags about replacing me with someone everyone likes better, she's going to realize she was never special to him. She was just a convenient tool. Good, Emily said flatly. Maybe she'll finally understand how it felt to be systematically isolated and manipulated. Jake cleared his throat. Actually, there's something about Jessica that you both should know. Something I probably should have mentioned earlier. My stomach tightened. What now? She's not Mark's first target from a spouse's workplace. 3 years ago, he briefly dated a woman named Rachel who worked with his previous girlfriend, Amanda. Same pattern, befriend the girlfriend, gain inside information, gradually poison the relationship from within. The room went silent except for Sophie's soft breathing. Previous girlfriend? Emily asked slowly. Mark was in a serious relationship before Sarah? 2-year relationship. Lived together, talked about marriage. Then suddenly Amanda became difficult and paranoid, started losing friends, and eventually they broke up because she couldn't handle Mark's patience and support. Jake's voice was bitter. I helped him move out of Amanda's place too. I believed every word of his victim narrative. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. Jake, are you telling me that Mark has done this before? That I wasn't his first victim? Sarah, I think you might not even be his second. The silence that followed Jake's revelation felt suffocating. Sophie stirred in Emily's arms, making tiny sleep sounds that seemed impossibly innocent against the backdrop of what we were discovering about Mark's systematic predation. How many? I asked quietly. How many women has he done this to? I'm not sure. But Sarah, I've been going through my memories since Wednesday night, and there are patterns I never noticed before. Jake's voice was strained. Remember how Mark always seemed to have these elaborate stories about his exes being crazy or controlling? Rachel from Amanda's work, Jenny from his college girlfriend's sorority, that woman Lisa who worked at his ex-fiancé's law firm. Emily looked up sharply. Ex-fiancé? Before Amanda. A lawyer named Patricia who Mark was engaged to for 6 months before she became obsessed with his female friendships and broke it off. Jake paused. Lisa from Patricia's firm called Patricia paranoid and possessive right up until Patricia found out Lisa and Mark were sleeping together. My hands were shaking again. Jake, how long have you known Mark? Since freshman year of college. 15 years. His voice dropped. Sarah, I think I've been watching him perfect this system for over a decade. I stood up abruptly, needing to pace. My small apartment suddenly felt claustrophobic, filled with the weight of revelations that kept reshaping everything I thought I knew. So what you're telling me is that Mark is essentially a serial emotional abuser who targets women by infiltrating their support systems. That's exactly what I'm telling you. And Sarah? Jake's voice got harder. I think he's already started on his next target. Emily and I both froze. Sophie chose that moment to wake up, blinking those dark eyes that looked so much like mine. What do you mean? Emily asked. There's a new teacher at Jefferson Elementary, started this year, fresh out of college. Mark's been volunteering there for their winter fundraiser. Says he wants to give back to the education community and honor Sarah's legacy in teaching. The coffee I've been drinking turned to acid in my stomach. He's volunteering at Jefferson? Gets better. The new teacher, Megan, mentioned to Jessica that this sweet volunteer has been asking thoughtful questions about the school culture, specifically about whether the staff is supportive of each other during personal crises. Jake's laugh was bitter. He's researching again, Sarah. Finding out which teacher might be vulnerable, who has relationship problems, who might be isolated enough to target. Emily shifted Sophie to her other arm, her jaw clenched. And Jessica doesn't see what's happening? Jessica thinks Mark is being wonderfully supportive of education. She actually told Megan that Mark learned from his previous marriage how important it is for teachers to have understanding partners. The disgust in Jake's voice was palpable. She's unknowingly helping him hunt for her own replacement. I sank back into my chair, overwhelmed by the scope of what we were uncovering. This wasn't just about my failed marriage or even Mark's affair with Jessica. This was about a man who had weaponized emotional intimacy, who collected vulnerable women like trophies, who had spent years perfecting techniques for psychological manipulation. The notebook, I said suddenly. Jake, you said he keeps records of people's vulnerabilities. Are there other women in there? Other victims? I only saw it briefly, but yes. At least 5 different women with detailed profiles, their fears, their family dynamics, their relationship histories. Jake paused. Sarah, some of those entries go back 7 years. He's been documenting how to manipulate people for most of his adult life. Emily looked down at Sophie, then back at me with fierce determination. We can't just expose him at the party. We need to warn his other victims. And we need to warn Megan before she becomes the next target. Agreed. But first we execute tomorrow night's plan. We get the notebook, we hijack his slideshow, and we make sure everyone in that room understands exactly who Mark really is. I pulled up the group chat screenshots again, scrolling to Mark's most damaging confessions. Then we contact every woman whose name appears in his records. Jake's voice came through the phone with renewed resolve. Sarah, I need you to know, I'm going to make sure he never does this to anyone else. Saturday morning brought an unexpected complication that nearly derailed our entire plan. I was in my kitchen at 7:23 a.m., stress-eating cereal while reviewing our strategy for the 100th time, when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk Sarah, this is Connor Walsh. We need to talk. Can you meet me at Brewster's Coffee on 5th Street in an hour? It's about tonight. Asterisk. My blood turned to ice. Connor, Mark's college roommate, one of his closest friends, someone who'd been actively participating in the group chat's cruelest conversations about my supposed mental instability. Connor knew. I immediately called Emily, who answered on the first ring despite the early hour. They know, I said without preamble. Connor wants to meet me. Shit. Okay, don't panic. Maybe Jake told him, maybe. Jake wouldn't do that. He was too angry yesterday. I paced around my tiny kitchen, my bare feet slapping against the cold linoleum. What if Mark figured it out? What if he's sending Connor to threaten me or... Sarah, breathe. Text Connor back and tell him you'll meet him, but I'm coming with you. Emily. No arguments. If this is some kind of setup, you're not walking into it alone. Besides, I've been wanting to give Connor Walsh a piece of my mind for 2 years. An hour later, Emily and I sat in a corner booth at Brewster's, watching Connor approach our table with the kind of nervous energy I remembered from college when he'd been caught cheating on exams. He looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, wearing yesterday's clothes. Sarah. He slid into the booth across from us, his hands shaking slightly as he set down his coffee. Thank you for meeting me. Hi, Emily. Emily's response was arctic. Connor. Look, I'm going to cut right to the chase because I've been awake all night and I feel like I'm losing my mind. Connor rubbed his face with both hands. Jake didn't tell Mark about the group chat, but he told me. Yesterday afternoon. Showed me some of the screenshots. My heart hammered against my ribs. And I've been sitting in my apartment for 14 hours reading through every conversation we've had for the past 2 years, and I want to throw up. Connor's voice cracked. Sarah, the things Mark said about you, the way he talked about destroying your relationships like it was a game, I can't stop thinking about how I helped him. Emily leaned forward, her eyes narrowed. You helped him do a lot more than that, Connor. According to the messages, you actively participated in spreading lies about Sarah. I know. God, I know. Connor pulled out his phone, scrolling through what looked like the same screenshots I'd been studying. But Sarah, there's something else. Something I didn't put in the group chat because I was too ashamed, but I think you need to know. I braced myself for another revelation, another layer of betrayal to process. The night of your divorce hearing, Mark came to my place afterward, and he was celebrating. Really celebrating. He brought champagne and kept talking about how perfectly everything had gone, how the judge had bought his whole concerned husband act. Connor's voice dropped to almost a whisper. He showed me texts from Jessica that night. She was asking if it was really over and when she could stop pretending to feel bad for Sarah. The coffee shop suddenly felt too warm, too crowded. Emily reached across the table and grabbed my hand. There's more, Connor continued. Mark made me promise never to tell anyone, but he recorded some of your couple's therapy sessions on his phone. He's got audio of you crying, talking about feeling isolated and paranoid. He plays them for people, Sarah. He uses them as proof that you were unstable. The world tilted sideways. My vision went dark around the edges. Recorded therapy sessions. Mark had secretly recorded me at my most vulnerable moments, crying about feeling isolated, admitting my fears, breaking down as I tried to save our marriage, and was using those recordings as weapons against me. Sarah? Emily's voice sounded far away. Sarah, breathe. I gripped the edge of the table, forcing air into my lungs. He recorded me in therapy. Without your consent, without Dr. Martinez's knowledge. He had his phone in his jacket pocket during sessions. Connor's face was pale with shame. Sarah, I heard you crying on those recordings. I heard you begging him to help you understand why you felt so disconnected from everyone. And Mark would play them and laugh about how you had no idea he was the one orchestrating everything. Emily's grip on my hand tightened. Connor, who else has heard these recordings? David, definitely. A few guys from his work. Jessica. Connor closed his eyes. He played one for Jessica where you were talking about feeling like your coworkers were pulling away from you. Jessica laughed. Sarah. She actually laughed at the sound of you crying. The betrayal cut so deep I could barely speak. Those therapy sessions had been sacred to me, the one place where I'd felt safe to be vulnerable, to admit my fears without judgment. Mark had violated that sanctuary and turned my pain into entertainment. Where does he keep them? Emily asked, her voice deadly quiet. On his laptop, as far as I know. Password-protected folder labeled insurance. Connor met my eyes. Sarah, there are at least 8 different recordings spanning 6 months of your therapy. I thought about Dr. Martinez, how she gently pushed me to trust the process and open up about my deepest fears. How Mark had sat beside me, holding my hand, nodding supportively while secretly documenting every breakdown for later use. The violation felt more intimate than his affairs. Connor, I said slowly, what changed? Why are you telling me this now instead of protecting Mark? He was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee. My sister. What? My sister Katie started dating this guy last month. Really charming, sweet, kept talking about how he wanted to understand her world and support her career. Asked a lot of questions about her friends, her family dynamics, her past relationships. Connor's voice got hoarse. Yesterday, after Jake showed me those screenshots, I realized the guy was using Mark's playbook. Word for word. Emily leaned forward. You think Mark taught someone his techniques? I think Mark's been refining his system for years and sharing it with other guys who want to control women. Connor pulled up something on his phone. There's this online forum, I found it on Mark's browser history when he asked me to fix his computer last month. It's called Relationship Strategy, and it's full of guys sharing manipulation tactics. My stomach dropped. Mark's part of an online community teaching men how to abuse women? Not explicitly. They call it maintaining frame and managing relationship dynamics. But Sarah, the techniques they discuss, isolation, gaslighting, turning victims against their support systems, it's exactly what Mark did to you. Connor scrolled through his phone. He's posted detailed case studies of his successful relationship management using fake names. Your marriage was a fucking tutorial for other predators. Emily stood up abruptly. I need air. She walked toward the coffee shop's front door, leaving me alone with Connor. There's something else, Connor said quietly. Something Jake doesn't know yet. Mark's planning to propose to Jessica at his birthday party tonight. In front of everyone. He wants to complete the narrative by showing how he's found real love after surviving his marriage to you. I stared at him. He's proposing tonight? Bought the ring 2 weeks ago. He's going to paint it as this beautiful moment where he's finally able to trust again after you put him through hell. Connor's voice was thick with disgust. Sarah, he's going to use your entire social circle as witnesses to validate his victim story while he proposes to the woman he cheated on you with. The audacity was breathtaking. Mark wasn't just celebrating his birthday, he was planning a public execution of any remaining sympathy for me while cementing his relationship with Jessica in front of everyone who believed his lies. But as I sat there processing this final insult, I felt something unexpected rising in my chest. Relief. Because now I knew exactly how to destroy him completely. The moment Mark dropped to one knee in front of Jessica, the entire room went silent. 43 people watched as he opened a blue velvet ring box under the warm glow of Murphy's Tavern chandeliers, completely unaware that Jake was positioned at the back of the room with his finger hovering over his laptop. Jessica, Mark said, his voice carrying that same earnest tone he'd used in couples therapy, you've shown me what real love looks like after years of. Jake, now, I whispered into my phone from where Emily and I stood just outside the private dining room's entrance. The projector screen that had been showing Mark's carefully curated slideshow of happy moments with Jessica suddenly went black. Then the first screenshot appeared, crystal clear, unmistakable, devastating. Mark Thompson, August 15th, 2:34 p.m. Asterisk dude, the new girl doesn't even question when I'm out late. Sarah used to track my location like a fucking detective LMAO asterisk. Connor Walsh, August 15th, 2:35 p.m. Bro, you were literally cheating on her with 3 different girls faced with tears of joy. The room erupted. Mark's voice died mid-proposal as 43 people simultaneously looked up at the screen, then back at him still kneeling with the ring box. Jessica's face went from glowing happiness to confused horror in seconds. What the hell, Mark started, but Jake had already clicked to the next screenshot. Mark Thompson, July 22nd, 4:15 p.m. At least now everyone knows what she's really like. Then another. Mark Thompson, June 18th, 11:47 p.m. Asterisk update, Sarah's completely isolated now. Hasn't hung out with anyone but me in like 6 months. Phase 1 complete direct hit asterisk. And another. Mark Thompson, May 30th, 7:28 p.m. Asterisk I make up shit all the time. Told her you guys think she talks too much at parties. Told her Emily said she was embarrassing at mom's birthday. None of it's real but she believes everything asterisk. Stop the fucking projector. Mark roared, finally standing up, the ring box tumbling from his hands. But Connor was already at the laptop too, physically blocking Mark's access while Jake continued clicking through months of damning evidence. My parents' faces appeared in my peripheral vision as Emily and I finally entered the room. Mom's hand was pressed to her mouth, tears streaming down her face as she read Mark's confession about turning our family against me. Dad looked like he was watching his worst nightmare come true in real time. Sarah? Jessica's voice was small, broken. She was staring at the screen where Mark's cruelest messages about her were now displayed, his brags about replacing me with someone everyone likes better, his jokes about how easily manipulated she was. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, I said quietly, meaning it. But you deserve to know the truth. Mark spun around, his face contorting with rage when he saw me. You crazy bitch. Those messages are fake. Everyone knows you're. Mark. Jake's voice cut across the room like a blade. He held up a familiar black notebook. Should I start reading from your leverage library? Maybe the section about Jessica's father's drinking problem that you plan to use if she ever questioned you? Or the notes about Amanda's miscarriage that you used to manipulate her 5 years ago? The color drained from Mark's face completely. Lisa from my old book club stood up, pointing at the screen. That's why you told me Sarah was spreading rumors about my marriage? You made that up? All of it, Emily said loudly, her voice carrying across the shocked silence. Every single lie he told about Sarah was part of a systematic plan to isolate and control her. And according to his notebook, she wasn't the first. Jake clicked to the final screenshot, Mark's most damning confession. Mark Thompson, 6:56 p.m. Asterisk good. Broken means she won't cause problems for me and Jess. Broken means she'll stay in whatever sad little apartment she's hiding in and leave us alone asterisk. Well, I said, looking directly at Mark as the room absorbed the full scope of his manipulation, I'm not broken anymore. And I'm definitely not staying quiet. Mark's perfectly constructed world, built on 2 years of lies, crumbled in exactly 37 minutes. By the time the screenshots finished cycling through, Jessica had walked out, my parents were demanding answers through their tears, and half the party guests were either confronting Mark or apologizing to me. The notebook Jake had retrieved contained evidence of Mark's manipulation spanning 7 different women over 8 years. 3 days later, Dr. Martinez called to inform me that Mark's secret recordings of our therapy sessions had been reported to the state licensing board and turned over to police. Connor had provided his laptop voluntarily. 2 weeks after that, Emily brought Sophie over for dinner in my apartment, the same sad little place Mark had mocked, now filled with flowers from friends who'd spent 2 years believing his lies. I talked to Amanda today, Emily said, bouncing Sophie on her knee. Mark's ex before you. She's been in therapy for years thinking she was the problem in their relationship. I looked up from where I was heating up Sophie's bottle. How is she handling it? She cried for an hour when I told her about the notebook. But Sarah? She said it was the first time in 5 years she felt sane. Emily smiled. She wants to meet you. Rachel too, and Patricia. Jake's been contacting all of them. A support group for Mark's victims? More like a task force. Amanda's a lawyer now. She thinks there might be grounds for civil action, especially with the recorded therapy sessions. Emily's eyes gleamed with the same strategic fire I'd seen before we destroyed Mark's birthday. We're going to make sure he never does this to anyone again. 6 months later, I was walking across the stage at Jefferson Elementary's volunteer appreciation ceremony when I spotted a young teacher who looked nervous and isolated, classic signs I now recognized. Megan, the new teacher Mark had been researching. After the ceremony, I approached her with a warm smile. Megan? I'm Sarah Morrison. I used to teach 4th grade. I heard you're settling in well. Oh yes, everyone's been so welcoming. There's this volunteer, Mark, who's been really helpful explaining the school culture. Actually, I said gently, I'd love to buy you coffee sometime and tell you about some red flags to watch for in this business. Some people aren't always what they seem. She looked surprised but nodded eagerly. As I walked back to my car, I thought about the text I'd received that morning from Emily, a photo of Sophie taking her first steps, arms outstretched toward the camera. The message read, she's walking toward Aunt Sarah's voice. Mark had tried to steal my story, to convince everyone that I was the villain. But stories can be rewritten when you have the truth. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply refusing to stay silent.